All right, we're in Tequila Jalisco today, and because it's so packed and because of COVID, we decided to come to the Museum of Tequila. You can actually get all the history of tequila here in all the different rooms. It's a very small place. It's only $1 to get in, so you can kind of see some of the things they do back, and I'll give you a little tour of what we got going here. And it gives you the making. We're gonna go through how tequila is made a little bit. Come on in here. So this area of Tequila Jalisco is famous for the agave plant, the blue agave plant. That's where you get the best tequila in the world. That's where you get the only blue tequila certified, because it's been certified since 1974. If it doesn't grow in certain areas, you cannot call it tequila. Since 1974, it was branded that way, was trademarked that way by the country of Mexico. So it's actually a legal way that you can only call it tequila. And this is what the tequila, the maguey plant looks like. Now, you get here, you have all the leaves and everything. Maybe there's some more pictures. Oh, here's some better pictures back here. I'll show you what it was. Let's see. By the way, beautiful drawing. And this kind of gives you an idea. So this valley of Tequila Jalisco, the valley, it lies in a very low-lying area that's very humid. It's very humid because the surrounding mountains create a vacuum type area for the mountain's air to stay very humid and somewhat dry even to a point. So tequila plants, the agave plant, they're never watered. They started as tiny plants, and they take about 5 to 7 years to grow to full maturity. And what you're actually growing is the base of the plant, which is the piña or pineapple. That can get as big as about 100 pounds. And that's where you're gonna get your tequila from. I'll explain the process a little bit. But all the area in this valley is volcanic rock. So there's actually a huge old extinguished volcano thousands of years ago that created all the dry air plant that you get from the tequila. So one of the things that happened, I'll show you over here, they used to call tequila the nectar of the gods. Why? It was believed, believe it or not, that tequila was something that the gods had sent down because, okay, the way it was kind of accidentally started is the plants were caught fire from the lightning strikes that came down. And because the lightning strikes came down and they burned it, they realized after it burnt, it left like a fermented plant that had an alcohol flavor, alcohol base to it. And that alcohol base, they would take it, and it was assumed that you could speak to God. What it was is you were drunk as hell. And so that's where they got it from. The first version, the nectar of the gods, which got the tequila. And so you can kind of see how it gets you get it from the volcanic area, but I'm going to walk you guys through a loteria-based explanation of how tequila is made. We'll come over this area. So the plant grown locally, here, just areas, we see the volcano, you see all the plants that are done. And what happens with the plant, once it's been growing, it takes about 5 to 7 years, and you get a full agave plant. The full agave plant, now fully grown, is then going to be harvested by a jimador, a person who uses a coa, like a shovel type thing, a shovel type tool, to take all the leaves off of the plant. Once it takes all the leaves out of the plant, you're left with the piña, the pineapple. This is huge, like I said, can wake up to 100 pounds, probably about 60 to 70 pounds is the average. And then maybe a little bit more. Once they take this batch of a bunch of the pineapple plants, they're then thrown into an oven, an oven. You can see the pile higher. And these ovens are huge rooms. They're probably about 15 or 20 feet by 30 feet wide and big. And they're shut in there, and they're cooked. Once they're cooked, then you get almost like a sugar cane type plant. It's very sweet, but it's also, that's where you get the sweetness or the nectar that you get from the tequila plant. Once that's done, then these plants are smashed. They're pulverized, and you get a lot of pulp. That pulp then is smashed and almost cut up into very fine parts. It then becomes going through its fermentation process, what you call here lambique. They're actually baked in cobre in these big, huge vats, and I'll probably show you guys a little bit what it does. Once it's cooking in there and fermented, it goes through the process of now becoming a fermented alcohol. And actually add water. They have to keep adding water to it, because if not, it's going to be pure straight alcohol. Once that's done and you've got your filtered out of all the pulp and everything, you've got just the liquid, they're then put into barrels. These barrels that they're put into, They'll ferment in the barrels from as least as a couple of months to up to 4 or 5 years. The tequila, when it comes out, like I said, because it's watered down and made into a drink, it actually, at that point, comes out very clear and it's filtered. They're put into the barrels, it comes out very filled. After being in the barrels for over a year, they're gonna change color. It gets that brown, when you get tequilas, it gets a brown hue or tint to it. The longer it's in the barrel, believe it or not, the darker the tequila gets. It's in the tequila for more than a year. It's called a reposado, rested. Goes over a year to 2 years, you get añejo. Goes over 3 years to 4 years, you get an extra añejo. And then of course it goes back into then being bottled in the different brands and the different types of tequilas you're gonna have. And lastly, once you bottled it and you got it and you take it home, you're gonna serve yourself in your tequila glass. A shot glass, but remember, don't drink it as a shot. I'll show you guys a little bit later what I mean by that. You sip tequila. And it's used to use a lot of lemon because sometimes that would be that harsh alcohol taste. But when you get a good tequila, which I'm gonna show you guys in a little bit, you don't need that. That's kind of the process of where the tequila comes from, and we'll go through some pictures that you guys can see what this area is like. So this originally is how what they used to do is those piñas, those pineapples there, the big huge pineapples that you get from the agave plant. They actually originally would put them in a pit like this, and they would take this huge couple 100-pound stone that can't really be moved, and they would use these stones to crush the pineapple. You would have a horse that would pull, a couple horses that would pull it around this area and pulverize the pineapple, and that's where you would get all the pulp from. Then they would take that pulp and they would then ferment it, put it into the brewing process that it goes into, add the water, and eventually get tequila from it. But really the tequila comes from the blue agave plant being grown in only in a certain areas, being pulverized, and then the person brewing the tequila knowing how long and what to add to eventually come up with tequila. Let me show you how many tequilas you can come up with. So, we go in here. So if you want to know how many tequilas are made, this isn't every tequila in the world, but you're going to see most tequila probably you've ever heard of, but more importantly, you're going to see tequilas you've never heard of. You got your original tequilas, you've got artisanal bottles, you've got your more classic type bottling for your tequilas. Then you get into a little bit more of the original type bottles, drinks that you had from the tequilas. And then of course it's all categorized by different brands, different houses, the houses of tequilas, right? So there's Casa Noble House. Down here you got Patron, which everybody's super familiar with. Not one of my favorites because there's so many other tequilas you can have. Believe it or not, one of my favorites that isn't an expensive bottle, Antiguo, which comes from Herradura House. And here's, in 1997, this bottle won the World Guinness record for the largest tequila bottle in the world. It was hand-blown glass. You can see the gentleman who made the bottle here. He had to put it into a metal frame so that way it would be able to transport and maintain it. But that holds the record for the largest bottle of tequila back in 1997, of course. But how's the tequila? If you're in tequila and want to tour one of the places, I just gave you guys more of a quick explanation, or not so quick, but this is what you get when you come to tequila.